Hey guys, my name is Colson Rosa, and welcome back to Seraphim Stories. In today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about characters, a super important part to every story, no matter what kind of genre you're in. And I've often heard it said that characters are only as good as their wants and their needs. And while I think this is definitely true, and I'm going to go into more detail about what that means, I don't think that's the whole story when it comes to characters. So first I want to describe some types of characters to you guys, and then I want to mention some key points on what you need to develop in your characters. So first, let's talk about the protagonist. The protagonist is the character who moves the story forward, who pushes the story along and heads down the plot and pushes it toward its final destination. The antagonist is then someone who opposes the protagonist, who tries to stop them from reaching their goal, usually at any cost. And this is not always good guys and bad guys. The protagonist could be the villain, maybe someone like the Joker, who is then the central spotlight-focused character in some of his movies. Now, in other movies, like the Batman Dark Knight trilogy, the Joker is the antagonist to Batman, trying to stop him from accomplishing his goal of peace and safety in Gotham. Now, another character that's really important to talk about is the foil. Not every story has to have a foil, but many do. And the foil is the opposite to someone else. You could think of Prince John and Robin Hood, and how their characters and their motivations are so completely different on almost every level. One is rich, the other is pretty poor. One is focused on themselves. The other is focused on serving the poor. One is focused on what will make him look better. The other is focused on the needs of the people and helping them. And although those are the three main types of characters, there can be many other side supporting characters who don't have to be given the background. They could be fully fledged and developed characters that have a lot of important moments and really develop and push forward the story. So just because they're not one of these main characters doesn't mean that they're not central and integral to the plot. So I want to talk about some key phrases and terms you can remember to try to focus your characters in the right direction and make them more than just cardboard cutouts. You want to make these characters memorable, vibrant, vivid, characters that you just can't stop thinking about, and they always remain in the memories of your readers. So the first trait that I think will help you do this is to make your character believable. Believable on some level. If a character is way beyond the boundaries of what we know, it's much harder to relate to them. And I've heard this criticism often when it comes to comparing the Marvel movies to the DCU movies. Many say that the Marvel characters are much more relatable and believable, and that the sometimes deity type figures of Superman, Wonder Woman, and many others like Green Lantern are not very believable because their powers are so extreme and so beyond the normal realm of possibility. And also, if your characters are believable, the tension is going to be much easier to uphold because their lives are threatened, their emotions are threatened, their feelings are at a loss sometimes, and they could easily lose the battles that they're fighting. And that makes them usually a lot more intriguing and interesting. And this is a great example you could point to both the Marvel and DCU experiments that have been kind of dominating pop culture recently. You look at a character like Spider-Man, compare him to a character like Batman. These are two of the most popular superheroes ever invented. And I can see why. Because they're very believable. They're in a lot of ways down to earth. Like even Spider-Man, who is maybe a little bit more fantastical, gets beat up all the time, has to constantly try to outthink his opponents and fights for everything that he has left. And the same can be said of Batman, using his wits, using his money, his charisma, his charm, his detective-like intellect. And these are all things that we can see in the world around us. We can see people using those to very prominent effect. And that ties in right to my next point, which I've already mentioned a little bit, is relatability. A character that's relatable is something that a reader naturally wants, whether they know it or not. Everyone tries to, in some level, relate to the characters presented. We can easily relate to somebody like Spider-Man, who's often portrayed as a high school or college age kid trying to win the state science fair, trying to get Gwen or Mary Jane as his girlfriend, and still very relatable the entire time. And most stories try to pull on the heartstrings of their readers in one way or another to make someone relatable, make someone that you can really feel for. Now, you don't have to emotionally manipulate your reader. That's not what I'm suggesting. But if you're just presenting real, tough circumstances and life challenges that people have had to go through, or even just relatable characteristics, maybe spunk or quirkiness or a lot of different characteristics that we've come to know and love in so many different characters. And a character that's relatable will then impact us more as we read about them, because we can see glimpses of our lives or our friends' lives or lives of family members or people that we know. Now, not every character in a story has to be perfectly relatable. In the Tales of Amcrinos series that I'm writing, most readers probably won't relate to Natas as the villain. And that's okay, but yet, as Natas is developed, and I'm hoping if I ever return to the Tales of Amcrinos series, that whether it's through short stories or prequels or a lot of other plans that I have, I'll be able to show a lot of the more detailed intricacies of his character. But even with the glimpses we get to see in the Tales of Amcrinos series, you see some of his cunning, you see some of his cleverness, you see some of his intellect and wit, and you see some of even the times where he's challenged as a tyrant and as a leader to step up and try to thwart the enemies that he has and make his plan come about. So I think those characteristics are somewhat relatable, make him a little bit more than just the stereotypical villain, because Natas knows he's fighting from the losing side, so he's trying to work and trick people and deceive them and make as many advances as he can while he's still got time, because he feels as though the time is running out for him. So the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to characters is making them unique. What makes someone stand out? That's an excellent question. And I think for a character to stand out, you can push them past the mold, push them past just physical descriptions. Physical descriptions are great, but there's something that can kind of come and go quickly for a reader. They'll read a physical description, it'll give them a mental image, and they'll move on. That alone isn't enough to build a character. Or even giving a character cool action scenes. Although those are very inspirational sometimes or impressive with how well they fight or complete certain actions, usually that's not enough for a character to feel unique. One tip that I could give is thinking about the character's motivations. Now, I mentioned before their wants and their needs. Some other questions you can ask is not just what do they want and what do they need in life, but what do they love? What do they hate? What do they have a passion for? Or what do they want to learn? Now, you can also develop them through what are they skilled at or what are they terrible at? What kind of background do they come from? What kind of background do they wish that they came from? What are their goals for the future? What are they looking for in themselves? Are they hard on themselves? Are they easygoing on themselves? And just kind of carefree and trying to live life to the fullest. And when you're thinking about a character that's unique, try to think about something that definitely makes sense and is believable for them, but something that you don't hear often used to describe a person. Like if you were thinking about describing your friends, could you go beyond their hair color and their eye color and what they do for a job and who their family is? Could you go into, these are some traits that they have that are maybe excellent traits, or little quirks and pet peeves that they have that bug or irritate them, little tics that they have, or strange things that they love to do that you don't see a lot of people love to do. And I think those are a great place to start. And then you could even take the base premise for your character. As you think about your character's arc, you think about their progression through the story. Where do they begin? Where do they end up? Usually you want them to end up in a very different place than where they began. Or if they do begin in the same place, you need to say why that is. And you need to show some other characters that have made massive changes toward what is good or toward what is evil. And they then relate to those changes they see in the people around them. And I think this ties into the next point very well, which is you want your character to be developed. Do not just build your character at the start. Definitely build them at the start. That's one of the excellent things about the build-up section of the 3-act structure. But as I've said before, not every story follows a 3-act structure. So no matter where you are at in the story, you want to keep developing your characters, keep making them interesting, keep giving them mistakes and pitfalls, keep giving them moments of tension or anger, but maybe also moments of happiness and joy, reflection, thinking through life, trying to better or improve themselves. Or maybe even saying, I don't need to improve myself in order to be accepted by someone. I think that's a point the movie The Greatest Showman got across really well. I can think even now of its song, This Is Me, and how some of these people that have been rejected by society don't need to hide themselves, and they can stand by the fact that they are who God designed them to be, and that's okay, that's enough. So I think also when you're developing your characters, you want to keep growing and advancing them. They're going to get advanced through the story. They're going to get advanced through the plot, but they also need to get advanced through their mindset and philosophy on things. I've been in a real superhero mood recently, so I'm going to throw one more example your way, which is the example of Black Panther. Now, Killmonger is an excellent villain because of the worldview that he demonstrates, the passionate conviction he has, and the thought process he has to try to make the world a better place, even though his mindset is very skewed on how to do that. He thinks he's the hero of the story. And he's effective at developing Black Panther himself, as he then realizes as a leader of Wakanda, he needs to be stepping up, and he needs to be actually using his platform and political power to be helping a lot of people in the world that could use the technology that they have to offer. So I think the last thing I'll say, the major point about character, is that they need to be contributing. Whether they're a minor side character or the main character. Each character you include in some way needs to contribute something to the story. So if you're going to have a random one-time character who just appears in a scene and then leaves, have that character have something important to say. Have that character do something important, and have that character matter, at least in some moment. Now you can add a couple of fluff characters just to develop the setting, but for most characters, even if they're there just for a moment and gone, make that moment count. And especially for your main characters, show, not just tell, but show through their actions how they're contributing to the grand narrative, how they're contributing to the lives of everyone else around them. And I think that can be a major benefit of having each and every character have their own moments to shine. I know it's a common complaint, but I think it's a well-grounded one, that sometimes movies will focus so heavily on the protagonist and the antagonist that all the other characters fall flat. All the other characters don't get this kind of treatment where they're believable, relatable, unique, developed, contributing. And that's a real shame. I think it's a shame to have so many characters that are just the love interest, or just the mean bully, or just the wise old man, or just the vicious ruler. I think they can be given a lot more to offer to the story, even if they're not the main player in the game. So reach out to me, guys, if you have any other questions about characters, about what you need to be doing to grow them, make them relatable, make them fully fleshed out in 3D, like we feel that they're in the room right next to us. And if you guys would consider subscribing to this channel, I would be so grateful. Or even liking this video or commenting down below your thoughts of some characters that have really touched and moved you, or some other things you want to know about characters. So I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and God bless.